So we've been having these discussions. I'm going to blame it a little bit on you, Brian, because
Okay.
they might have. I don't know if they started with you, but you've definitely been involved in terms of where Nebraska can make moves throughout the Big Ten this year and the middle of the pack. I'm going to start here because I don't think we've asked you this yet in this regards. What do you think the ceiling is for Nebraska? Best case scenario, let's go super idealistic. What do you think the best case scenario is for Nebraska in terms of finish in the Big Ten?
In the Big Ten, I mean, I think so. We're being idealistic. We're
Yeah,
being
let's
like
say like Dylan
someone's
turns
rolling
into
their
all Big Ten quality quarterback. The defensive line is what I think they are. The offensive line comes together. The wide receivers are like, it's idealistic.
okay. I mean, if you're gonna shoot for the ceiling, idealistic is they're like a 10-2 team. That kind of. So, what is
Three,
uh,
4,
let's say,
somewhere in there. Is that basically the?
yeah. So two losses. Yeah, I would say that would put you in the top four, right? So yeah, I think that's where it would sit. I mean, I think that's what they're thinking about. So if you want to just say what's inside the walls, what's the mindset of what they think they can be, I mean, win is written on every board over there every time I've ever seen it, and there's an expectation like we can make a move. I think they thought they could last year, so um, yeah, that's where you start as far as like where you place the ceiling. I always hate the capped ceiling on a team. You never know. Sometimes everything, as you mentioned, the different things that can fall together. Like I've always said, like what happens if Nebraska has a year where they're actually like stinking plus 10 in turnover margin? Like they've only been plus like twice in 21 years of football
And
in
that's a
the
total of
plus
plus
minus.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like, what if you actually had a year where like you have a safety who picks off like six passes or something, and it's just like one of the things kind of break your way. You're great in the red zone. So yeah, to your question, as I round the track in a long-winded answer, would be like 10-2, and that puts you like 3 or 4. That's the idealistic one.
So, how much realism is there in that idealistic scenario? I mean, we're not talking about, I think you answered it, I think, similar to how I would have. Not that that makes you right or wrong, but we're not talking about like an Indiana all of a sudden like running through the regular season almost undefeated, right? Like, we're talking about what I think is a scenario that is on the table. Like, how much realism do you think there is in that scenario?
Um, I mean, it's not what I'm predicting. Like, I'm not going to predict them to do that right now,
Hmm.
but I think they have enough parts that it's not something where someone has to be snarky about it. Like, or someone's driving along right now and they're listening to this, rolling their eyes about it. I mean, for the reasons I mentioned, there's certain things, and the reason why a naysayer would say it's not going to happen is these things haven't happened for a long time.
Hmm.
These certain things we always talk about, like getting plus in the turnover margin and all that stuff, and taking steps in certain areas, but they are reachable. And if so, take turnovers as one, take special teams as another, where there's a lot of optimism about like what does it look with Eckler and just like how he can get those guys firing in the four core units, and hopefully you get a couple good right reliable right feet as well. But if you have solid special teams, change turnover margin in those two areas, we're talking about stuff we haven't as much in recent years, and that might be worth what 1 or 2 wins right there. And then if your QB play elevates a little bit, your O line play, we've talked about this on the show. Some people feel like that can really be the strength of the team. Wide receivers are hoping to be a little bit better. There's all these little parts where you could definitely talk yourself into it being realistic. So it's not my prediction. I want to be clear on that, but I do. I don't think it's out of bounds to say that that can be a goal for them over there. And if someone says it can't happen, they just haven't paid attention to college football in recent years.
It's interesting, B. We've sharpened up this, and I gave Ravi all the answers to the test, so he kind of knows the method to my madness. But I started with this whole, and you might have kicked it off. It was either you or Shafe. I don't think it was Sam because Sam, I remember, was kind of very similar to your responses. Remember the whole trajectory and the over under, and then we talked about the quarterbacks with those said teams. Now we're actually getting into the schedules, because the method to my madness is the natural thing to say is, oh, Nebraska, they could be, 9-3 or 10-2 or 8-4, whatever it is that we arrive at. And I'm like, okay, if they're going to be better than a year ago, there's going to have, there's going to be teams in the middle that they have to jump. So we're going through this whole schedule thing of the non-opponents that Nebraska can't really control, right? The Washingtons, the Indianas, the Illinois. We're going to get to Rutgers and Wisconsin today. And I think the goal, like if you ask me, like, DB, where are you trying to go with this? Do you agree that if Nebraska's going to make the move and in essence be one of those top 6 teams, because that gets them to the play-in of this new proposed format, they're going to have to move a ton of furniture in order to rearrange the room, right? I mean, there's some teams that they've got to push through, and so I'm trying to find these plausible ways to do it. It would be a fairly, not just a tough task, but if they could pull it off, like they're going to have to execute, but it could be pretty cool if they do. It won't be easy, but if they do, it'll be well earned is kind of what I'm arriving at, because it's going to be tough to do.
Yeah, there is a lot of furniture in the way. There's a lot of ottomans right in the middle of the living room, teams you don't even think about. I think one of the toughest things about the SEC and the Big Ten that some people don't give enough credit to when it's all said and done is the game against like a Michigan State or a Maryland, and it's still physical. It's still like the next morning you feel it. And like, so there's no weeks where you get a breather where you can say, well, we can lay the ball on the ground 2 or 3 times and get away with that. Not in this league. You've got to be really strong in the trenches. And like we used to do, I still do it a little bit because we're allowed to, because we're not inside the walls, but like you sort of rank these games, but and like sometimes they're difficulty, but every one of them has their own challenge at that point in the schedule, and they're going to have certain guys that are tough matchups, skill guys, and you're going to have to come to play. So like when I look at Nebraska's schedule, and it sort of connects to, I think, to what you're talking about. I mean, I look as much as like October 4th through the 18th as anything, where I think it's that stretch of Michigan State, Maryland. I might have the order out of place. Minnesota.
No, that's right.
3 M's.
Yep.
And I mean, that's after Michigan. So then there's a bye, but then you have that stretch where it's Maryland, Michigan State, Minnesota. And I mean, those are teams where, like in the old days, you'd be like, oh, you talk about Michigan, Penn State game, and it wouldn't be something if Nebraska got one of those pelts and put them on the wall and all that stuff. But if you're talking about getting moving past furniture and positioning yourself as like top 4 or 5, 6 in the league,
they'll have definitely earned it.
Yeah. But that's a stretch of games that gets you in that position.
Yep.
And everyone's different in its own way. And so Nebraska doesn't play Illinois this year, but Illinois, I haven't looked at their schedule and don't know it inside and out, but I'm sure they have a stretch of 2 or 3 games where maybe their fans are thinking about some more high profile name, but inside their walls, it's like, yeah, you're going to have to handle this business too if you actually want to be in the top 6. So, yeah, I totally understand what you're saying with all the, bringing every team into the equation and sort of where they're at, because Nebraska's sort of been stuck with a lot of teams in this, like, teams 4 through 15 in this league are very close, have been very close. The difference has been minuscule. And Iowa has found little things they can do well or emphasize that they're good at that have kind of gotten them over the top sometimes, when they very easily could have been like the 13th or 14th best team in the league if a couple things had gone the other way. That's how tight this is, and that's how much you have to have things ratcheted up when you play in this league and can't have an off week.
So BC, I'm thinking about the way you're talking about the like middle and lower middle class, if for lack of a better term, of the Big Ten, right? These teams that Nebraska's either in the same boat as or needs to sort of pass in order to get where we're hoping they go. And I just wonder if, I started thinking about what does this look like in other leagues, right? What does it look like in the Big 12 or the ACC? And part of me just wonders if there were more cracks in the foundation for a lot longer than we realized before the move to the Big Ten, and then the house just started falling apart, and we're like, hey, where did this come from? And it's because we didn't notice. Like, did your brain ever go there?
With Nebraska and just why it's been so tough, you're saying?
Well, just like if there were longer standing issues that were sort of pasted over by 9-3 records that we probably should have seen this coming, maybe not to this degree of length of struggle, but probably should have seen larger issues coming, even though the wins were still there for a while.
Yeah, maybe. I think that's a tough, man. That's a big question.
Yeah.
I mean, I would start with, I feel like in the trenches for a period of time, and this is where the optimism comes in. If you want to be an ideal, I think Nebraska can, especially on that O-line, we've talked about that. They can be strong this year, but I do think there was a period of time where that fell off on both sides a little bit, not sometimes at the very top, but it was just a depth thing. And I think when you get into this league, if you're not really well-rounded in the trenches and this the old story around here is how Nebraska maybe didn't get enough bang for their buck from like Sue, like in the success he had and some D-line recruiting classes. And I think just as you started to add it all up for, 8-10 years, it was sort of like it felt a little thin at certain spots. And so I think if there's one thing where I think it's fair to have hope. They believe, I think that they've gotten pretty deep at a lot of these groups, and not just the trenches. I mean, the secondary. You heard like Matt Rhule in the spring say, I think we could start 5 corners, 6 safeties, or whichever way it was. I mean, there's 11, 12 guys they feel really good about there. I think they feel pretty strong about their backers and how they had like 3 deep at 2 of the spots there. And so the hope is that you actually have the type of squad, especially if you have a mindset like we're in it to win it. We're in it to play 15, 16 games eventually, that you actually have like 100 guys who over the course of a year, they can help in their own little way. And so maybe they're closer to that than I think they were at times after they made the move from into this league. And it sort of has been something that's been difficult to overcome.
Okay, it's been almost a month since I think we kind of asked you or intimated the original question, and had a little more time. If the top 3 teams in the conference, in whatever order, are Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State, who do you feel most comfortable putting 4 and 5, given all the things that we've talked about in the last month now?
Right now, I would say Illinois and maybe USC. But
that 5th spot has been nobody can quite land the plane. We've heard SC, we've heard Michigan, but it's that's been about it. Illinois is always in the discussion,
either 4th or 5th. Yeah.
Yep. No Indiana. Like nobody else has cracked kind of that. So I guess I almost should just say top 6 and put 5, 6 in whatever order you want.
So, BC, when you're talking about Illinois, is there any part of your brain that goes like, hey, why does Vegas only have that at 7.5 wins? Like, does that bother you at all?
No, I didn't know that, I guess. I didn't pay it
enough It's relatively recent. I think the win totals last week.
I think. Yeah. Maybe I just have PTSD from Iowa last year being too high on them at 7.5, but
hey, whenever Vegas says something, I've learned that like they sometimes know a thing or two. But I'd have to look at their schedule closer. I just like the way he coaches in this league, the way he develops guys. I think a lot of people would give him credit for that. Like their quarterback, and they built kind of a winning culture last year where they figured out how to win some of those close games. Sometimes that's tough to back up though. So we'll see if they can catch some of the same breaks. Like, I mean, they played pretty evenly with Nebraska. Obviously, they won the thing, but that's also a game where Nebraska looks at like 3 or 4 or 5 different things in that game where it's like, man, we let that one get through our fingers. So that's where this whole conversation is pretty interesting, because like you could say like, okay, I'll say Illinois is the 4th team, but I put Illinois, USC, Nebraska, Iowa, I put them all very much in the same boat. It's just a matter of like who does those little things a little bit better, who makes that clutch play when you have to have it, a little consistency, who doesn't do something stupid with clock management. You got to be, you got to have everything tightened up here. And that's where, like when I hear Rhule talk about, hey, I've gone over like, I assume like maybe the Ohio State game and the 2-minute drive, like 5-6 times, you watch it back and you think about it with Holgerson, and you're chopping that up through the off season. That's where you hope Nebraska in some of those moments just has a few more answers than they have in the past.
You know what I'm surprised about, just because of the consistency of their track record, and they usually have good success against Nebraska. Don't you think we're missing on Iowa?
Iowa's got a tough schedule.
I would agree. I agree.
You have it in front of you maybe, or you could
I'm
pull
bringing
it up. But they
we're doing them so we broke this down into teams that Nebraska could control because they play them, and teams they don't. So yesterday was Indiana, Washington, Illinois. Today is Rutgers and the team that everybody's throwing dirt on, Wisconsin. But the 3 games I picked for opponents that Nebraska has to play are SC, Iowa, and Minnesota for the actual head-to-heads.
So what do those 3 games mean? What are you saying when you say there's?
Because I think 2 of those 3 games are must-win if Nebraska's going to be who we want them to be.
Okay.
2 of those 3 games are must-win, in my opinion.
I would agree with that.
Okay, all right. You want to?
I mean, another way to look at it, I was writing about, I always write about protecting your backyard, and like, so Nebraska went 5-2 at home last year. They went 4-3 at home their first season. If you get that to at least 6-1,
you're in business.
Yeah, and 6-1 though means if you're gonna go 6-1 at home, means Iowa, USC, Michigan. Those are 3 of the games. I think most people would say, if you said, okay, if you had to do this exercise, rank the most difficult, which I did a couple days ago, I'd have Penn State 1. I had USC 2. Some would have Michigan. I had Michigan 3, Iowa 4. I just say that, like, of those top 4 tough games, 3 of them are at Memorial Stadium.
Yep.
And you got to get back to making that place where you expect things are going to go your way there. Teams come in and they know there might be they're down 7 points because there's going to be something that happens. They just know they're going up against a team with a lot of energy and a fan base that's behind them. So Iowa, USC, Michigan are all home games, and so if you won 2 of those 3, I think that'd be another 3 I would highlight.
So they have a bye in between, but starting on the 27th, Iowa has Indiana at home for their homecoming. Then they get a week off. They go to Madison. Then they get Penn State at their place. Now they
play Ohio State too.
Yeah, well, and they close BC with at USC, Michigan State at home, at Nebraska.
Yeah, they don't have Ohio State.
They don't have Ohio State. They have they have Oregon.
They have Oregon right after a couple weeks after the Penn State game.
But again, they get them in Iowa. Oregon comes to their place though.
Yeah, Penn State and Oregon both go to Iowa City.
Nebraska's on the road in Lincoln.
And so is at USC. Those are probably your toughest road games.
Because Indiana comes to their place too.
Mm-hmm. So
maybe I'm not being fair to Iowa. One of the reasons I don't like it, so they play Oregon and USC, right? Both those teams.
Yeah.
Iowa's so like fitted for like old school Big Ten in my mind and the way they play. Sometimes I like wonder how they're going to do against some of those teams when they see more of them. But we'll see. I get they handled Washington pretty good last year, so that might be a stupid point. But
remember, I was kind of predicting upset too, and they got stomped.
Yeah, so I would say their schedule is why I think they have the same, like a 7.5 over under from what I've heard out there. So I mean, Iowa though I never sleep on. I know people snicker about their offense and for fair reason, but they got a new OC and he might have a few ideas that help them out there.
Well, new quarterback too. I mean, who knows what Gronowski looks like making the leap to Big Ten football.
Yeah.
That's our guy, BC, Brian Christopherson, Husker247. We appreciate it as always. Enjoy Uncle time today.
All right then, Uncle B.
Yeah. I got to make sure I hold the baby correctly, but thanks for having me on, guys.
Support the head.
Sounds good.
All right, buddy.
That's our guy, Brian Christopherson, Husker247.